The sun was setting on a quiet Tuesday evening when the massive Galactic Empire warship appeared in Earth's orbit. Its dark, angular shape blotted out the stars, casting an ominous shadow over the planet below. On the bridge of the warship, Captain Zaxlor sneered at the blue marble beneath him. These primitive humans were barely a blip on the Empire's radar, hardly worth the fuel it took to make this routine patrol. Meanwhile, on the outskirts of Luna City, 8-year-old Timmy Anderson was buzzing with excitement. His parents had finally agreed to let him take his new mini shuttle for a spin around the moon. "Remember, stay within the designated flight zone," his mother cautioned as she helped him into the cockpit. Timmy nodded eagerly, his eyes shining with the promise of adventure. As Timmy's small craft lifted off, a minor malfunction in its navigation system went unnoticed. The shuttle veered off course, drifting further and further from the safe zone. Timmy, too engrossed in the thrill of piloting, didn't realize he was heading straight for the Empire's self-declared restricted area. On the warship, a junior officer spotted the approaching blip on the radar. "Captain, we have an unidentified craft entering restricted space," he reported. Captain Zaxlor's 4 eyes narrowed. "Probably some foolish human thinking they can spy on us," he growled. "Destroy it immediately." The weapons officer hesitated. "Sir, it's a very small craft. Shouldn't we issue a warning first?" Captain Zaxlor slammed his tentacle on the console. "Did I stutter? I said destroy it. Show these insects what happens when they defy the Empire's authority." In his shuttle, Timmy had just realized something was wrong. The stars didn't look right, and that big ship wasn't supposed to be there. As he reached for the comm unit to call for help, a blinding light filled the cockpit. On Earth, millions of people watched in horror as a massive energy beam lanced out from the Empire's ship, vaporizing Timmy's shuttle in an instant. The boy didn't even have time to scream. For a moment, the world held its breath. Then, as the reality of what had just happened sank in, a wave of anguish and rage swept across the planet. In every city, in every home, people stared at their screens in disbelief, tears streaming down their faces. In the White House Situation Room, the President of the United States slumped in her chair, her face ashen. "My God," she whispered, "they killed a child. A little boy out for a joyride." Across the globe, other leaders reacted with similar shock and outrage. The Chinese premier's hands shook as he ordered his military to high alert. In Moscow, the Russian president's eyes blazed with cold fury as he demanded immediate action. As news of the incident spread, crowds began to gather in streets and squares worldwide. In New York's Times Square, a sea of candles flickered in the darkness as people held an impromptu vigil. In Tokyo, thousands of angry protesters marched on the Galactic Empire's embassy, held back only by a thin line of riot police. On social media, #JusticeForTimmy began trending globally within minutes. Celebrities, politicians, and ordinary citizens alike called for immediate and decisive retaliation against the Empire. In orbit, oblivious to the storm they had unleashed, Captain Zaxlor allowed himself a satisfied smirk. "Let that be a lesson to these primitives," he said, turning away from the view screen. "Now set course for the next sector. We're done here." But the captain couldn't have been more wrong. As Zaxlor's ship disappeared into hyperspace, the leaders of Earth were already convening an emergency meeting. In secret bunkers and hidden facilities around the world, long-dormant protocols were being activated. The death of one innocent child had lit a fire in the heart of every human on the planet. And soon, the Galactic Empire would learn just how dangerous and angry humanity could be. The day after Timmy Anderson's death dawned gray and somber across the planet. In every time zone, as people woke to the news, a heavy silence fell. Schools closed, businesses shut down, and the usually busy streets of major cities stood eerily empty. In New York City, the giant screens in Times Square played a loop of Timmy's school picture. His gap-toothed smile and twinkling eyes looked down on the silent crowds gathering below. An old woman placed a teddy bear at the base of the screens, and soon others followed. Within hours, a mountain of flowers, toys, and handwritten notes covered the square. Across the ocean in London, the bells of St. Paul's Cathedral rang out in a mournful tone. The royal family, breaking centuries of tradition, joined the thousands of citizens in a spontaneous march through the city. The young prince clutched a hand-drawn picture of a spaceship with the words, "For Timmy," scrawled in childish handwriting. In Tokyo, millions of paper cranes appeared overnight, hanging from trees, buildings, and shrines. Each one bore Timmy's name and a wish for peace. The usually bustling Shibuya crossing became a sea of candlelight as people held a silent vigil. But beneath the sorrow, a current of anger was building. In Berlin, a group of university students spray-painted a massive mural on the remnants of the wall. It showed a child's broken toy spaceship and the words, "Never again," in dozens of languages. As the day wore on, the leaders of Earth gathered for an emergency meeting. In a secure bunker deep beneath Geneva, representatives from every nation sat around a circular table. The mood was tense, the faces grim. "We cannot let this stand," the Russian president said, his voice low but filled with steel. "The empire must pay for this atrocity." The Chinese premier nodded in agreement. But how? Their technology far surpasses ours. A direct confrontation would be suicide. That's when the U.S. president stood up. She looked around the room, meeting each leader's eyes. "What I'm about to tell you has been a secret for decades. A secret shared by all our nations, hidden from our own people." She pressed a button, and a hologram appeared above the table. It showed massive underground facilities, advanced ships unlike anything publicly known, and weapons that seemed to belong in science fiction. "Project Prometheus," she said, "started after our first contact with alien life, when we realized how outmatched we were. We've been preparing, ladies and gentlemen. Preparing for a day we hoped would never come." The room erupted in murmurs of shock and disbelief. The Indian Prime Minister leaned forward, his eyes wide. "Are you saying we can fight back?" The U.S. President's face was grim but determined. "I'm saying we can do more than fight back. We can unleash a force that will make the Empire regret ever hearing the name Earth." She brought up another hologram, showing thousands upon thousands of ships, 700,000 dreadnoughts, hidden in bases across the solar system, more advanced than anything the Empire has, built with reverse-engineered alien tech and human ingenuity. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. It was the Brazilian president who finally spoke up. "The loss of life, the risk. Are we ready for this?" The U.S. president looked around the room. "Are we ready to let Timmy's death go unanswered? Are we ready to live under the Empire's boot, always fearing for our children?" One by one, the leaders nodded. The decision was made. As the meeting concluded, the U.S. president made one last statement. "We strike hard, we strike fast, and we don't stop until the Empire falls. For Timmy, for Earth, for humanity." As the leaders dispersed to set the plan in motion, a sense of grim determination filled the air. In orbit, automated systems began to wake. Deep in hidden lunar bases, crews rushed to their stations. Across the Earth, millions of humans went about their day, unaware that their planet was about to take its first steps towards becoming a galactic superpower. The Empire had sown the wind. Now, they would reap the whirlwind. As dawn broke over the Mojave Desert, the ground began to tremble. Slowly, silently, a massive door slid open in what appeared to be a plain stretch of sand. From the depths of the Earth, a gleaming starship rose, its hull catching the first rays of sunlight. This scene repeated across the globe, in the Siberian tundra, the Australian outback, and beneath the waves of the Pacific. Project Prometheus had begun. In a hidden facility deep within Mount Fuji, Dr. Yuki Tanaka stared at the holographic display before her. Streams of data flowed past, detailing the activation of hundreds of thousands of ships. Her fingers danced over the controls, coordinating the largest mobilization in human history. Dr. Tanaka, a voice called. She turned to see General Chen, the head of Earth's newly formed United Defense Force. How long until the fleet is ready? Yuki took a deep breath. The ships are ready, General. It's the crews I'm worried about. We're asking people to leave everything behind, possibly forever. Chen nodded grimly. They know the stakes. Send out the call. Across the planet, millions of screens lit up with an emergency broadcast. The leaders of Earth's nations stood side by side, their faces solemn. Citizens of Earth, the U.S. President began. The time has come for humanity to take its place among the stars. We call upon you now, in our hour of need. We have ships. We have weapons. Now we need you, the brave men and women who will crew them. The response was overwhelming. In New York, lines stretched for blocks as volunteers waited to sign up. In Lagos, stadiums were converted into processing centers. From Seoul to Sao Paulo, humanity answered the call. Among the volunteers was Maria Rodriguez, a schoolteacher from Mexico City. As she stood in line, she clutched a photo of her young son. For Timmy, she whispered, and for Pablo, for all our children. In orbit, the International Space Station transformed into a bustling command center. Colonel Rashid Khan floated before a window, watching as shuttles ferried troops and supplies to the waiting dreadnoughts. It's magnificent, he breathed, taking in the sight of Earth's armada assembling. His reverie was interrupted by a young lieutenant. Sir, we're detecting unusual activity from the Kuiper Belt. Something big is coming online. Khan's eyes widened as he saw the readings. Alert command. Looks like our asteroid mining operations were more than they seemed. Deep in the outer reaches of the solar system, enormous structures began to move. Hollowed-out dwarf planets, converted into mobile factories and fortresses, joined the fleet. Ceres, Pluto, and Eris, each now a titanium-clad behemoth armed to the teeth. Back on Earth, in a repurposed airplane hangar, Sarah Chen stood before a sea of faces. Once a professional gamer, she now found herself teaching spacecraft operations to thousands. The controls may seem familiar to some of you, she said, gesturing to the simulator pods. We based them on popular space combat games. Turns out, all those hours of planning weren't wasted after all. A ripple of nervous laughter went through the crowd. Sarah's expression turned serious. But remember, this isn't a game. The stakes are real. The enemy is real. And we must be ready. In the skies above, the first wave of dreadnoughts entered formation. Their hulls gleamed with strange, shifting patterns, adaptive camouflage based on reverse-engineered alien tech. Each ship was a city unto itself, capable of sustaining its crew for years if necessary. Admiral Xiong stood on the bridge of the flagship, christened Terran Justice. He watched as more and more ships joined the fleet, a lump forming in his throat. Status report, he barked, hiding his emotion. Admiral, we're at 30% strength and climbing. At current rates, we'll have the full 700,000 ships ready in 72 hours. Xiong nodded. And the crews? Training around the clock, sir. It's not ideal, but they're learning fast. The neural interface systems are helping. The Admiral turned back to the viewport, watching Earth grow smaller as the fleet assembled. It will have to be enough. The Empire has no idea what's coming for them. As night fell across the planet, humanity looked to the stars with new eyes. Fear mingled with determination, sorrow with hope. In backyards and on rooftops, people gathered to watch the faint glints of the assembling armada. Tomorrow, Earth would bare its teeth. Tomorrow, the galaxy would learn that humanity was not to be trifled with. And somewhere out there, blissfully unaware, the Galactic Empire continued its patrol, not knowing that a storm was brewing. A storm named humanity. The moment had arrived. Earth's mighty fleet, hidden for so long, was about to reveal itself to the galaxy. In the command center of the flagship, Terran Justice, Admiral Xiong stood tall, his weathered face illuminated by the soft glow of holographic displays. All ships report ready. Admiral, his second-in-command announced. her voice tight with anticipation. Xiang nodded, taking a deep breath. He keyed the comm system, knowing his words would reach every ship, every crew member, and every soul back on Earth. Men and women of Earth, he began, his voice steady despite the weight of history upon his shoulders. Today, we answer the stars. Today, we show the galaxy that humanity will not be pushed aside. For Timmy, for Earth, for our future, launch. With that single word, the greatest armada in human history sprang into action. From hidden bases on the Moon, Mars, and scattered across the asteroid belt, ships rose in perfect formation. The gas giants, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune, disgorged fleets that had been concealed within their stormy atmospheres. Even distant Pluto revealed its secret as warships emerged from beneath its icy surface. On Earth, millions watched in awe as the sky came alive. What started as pinpricks of light soon became a dazzling display as 700,000 dreadnoughts moved into position. The ships ranged in size from nimble frigates to behemoths that dwarfed small moons. Each one was a marvel of engineering, bristling with weapons and shielded by technology reverse-engineered from a dozen alien races. Among the crowds watching from Earth was Lisa Chen, a young girl from Singapore. She clutched her father's hand, her eyes wide with wonder. "Dad, are those all our ships?" she asked in a hushed voice. Her father nodded, tears in his eyes. "Yes, sweetheart, that's humanity up there, showing the universe what we're made of." In orbit, the fleet began to move as one. The formation was a work of art. Layers upon layers of ships, arranged in a three-dimensional pattern that boggled the mind. At its heart was the flagship Terran Justice, flanked by the converted dwarf planets that served as mobile fortresses. As the armada accelerated, the ships engaged their stealth systems. To any watching eyes, it would seem as if the stars themselves had decided to go for a stroll. The entire fleet, despite its immense size, vanished from conventional sensors. In the Galactic Empire's central command, an alarm suddenly blared. A young officer, his tentacles twitching nervously, approached his superior. "Sir, we've detected an anomaly in the Terra system. A massive energy surge, unlike anything we've seen before." The Imperial commander scoffed. "Probably just another primitive weapons test. Those humans are always playing with explosives." "But sir," the officer insisted, "the readings are off the charts. And now we can't detect anything. It's as if the entire system just went dark." For the first time, a flicker of concern crossed the commander's features. "Send a patrol to investigate. And alert High Command. Something's not right." Little did they know, Earth's vengeance was already on its way. Back on the Terran Justice, Admiral Qiang studied the galactic map. Their first target was the nearest Imperial stronghold, a massive space station that served as a hub for the Empire's operations in this sector. "Set course for the Arcturus system," he ordered, "and prepare the Nemesis Protocol." His second-in-command's eyes widened. "The Nemesis Protocol. Are you sure, sir?" Xiang's face was grim. The Empire killed an innocent child without warning or mercy. It's time they learned that every action has consequences. As the fleet entered faster than light travel, the stars stretched into streaks of light. On every ship, crews steeled themselves for the battles to come. They were engineers, teachers, farmers, and store clerks. Ordinary people thrust into an extraordinary situation. But in their hearts burned a fierce determination. The Empire had awakened a sleeping giant, and now it would face the full might of human ingenuity and resolve. In the darkness of space, 700,000 ships hurtled towards their destiny. The galaxy held its breath, unaware that the balance of power was about to shift dramatically. Humanity had taken its first steps into a larger universe, and nothing would ever be the same again. The Arcturus system loomed large in the view screens of Earth's massive fleet. At its heart sat the Imperial stronghold, a sprawling space station that looked like a metal spider web stretched across the stars. Unaware of the approaching danger, Imperial ships moved about their routines, their crews confident in their supposed superiority. Admiral Xiang stood on the bridge of the Terran Justice, his face a mask of determination. All ships prepare for battle. Engage the Nemesis protocol on my mark. Across the fleet, crews tensed. The Nemesis protocol was Earth's trump card, a combination of advanced ECM, quantum entanglement communication, and AI-driven tactical systems that would allow the human fleet to act as one devastating organism. "Sir," a young lieutenant called out, her voice shaky with excitement, "we're detecting a transmission from the station. They've spotted us." Xiang nodded grimly. "And so it begins. All ships, Nemesis protocol. Engage." In an instant, the once invisible human fleet blazed into existence. Thousands upon thousands of ships, their hulls gleaming with strange, shifting patterns, suddenly filled the Arcturus sky. On the Imperial station, alarms blared. The station commander, a veteran of 100 battles, felt his blood run cold at the sight before him. "By the Emperor's tentacles," he whispered, "what is this?" Before he could give any orders, the human fleet struck. It moved with impossible coordination, as if guided by a single mind. Smaller ships darted between the lumbering Imperial cruisers, their weapons finding weak spots with unerring accuracy. Larger human dreadnoughts engaged the station itself, their advanced shields shrugging off return fire like raindrops. In the chaos of battle, a small squadron of Earth fighters found themselves cornered by Imperial interceptors. Their leader, Captain Maria Rodriguez, the former schoolteacher from Mexico City, gritted her teeth. "Remember your training," she called to her squad. "Just like the simulations, we can do this." With a series of maneuvers that would have been impossible just months ago, the Earth fighters spun and weaved through the Imperial formation. Their neural interfaces allowed them to react at superhuman speeds, turning the tide of the skirmish in moments. Back on the Terran Justice, Admiral Xiang watched the battle unfold with a mixture of pride and sorrow. Every Imperial ship destroyed, every alien life lost, weighed heavily on his conscience. But the memory of Timmy and the threat the Empire posed to Earth steeled his resolve. "Sir," his second-in-command reported, "the station's defenses are at 30% and falling. We've barely lost any ships." Xiang nodded. "Prepare boarding parties. I want that station taken intact if possible." As the order went out, specially trained Earth Marines prepared for action. Among them was Sergeant John Smith, a former London police officer. As he checked his advanced exosuit, he couldn't help but marvel at how far humanity had come in such a short time. "Remember, lads," he called to his squad, "we're not here for revenge. We're here for justice. Let's show these aliens what it means to be human." The boarding pods launched, streaking towards the weakened Imperial station like a swarm of angry hornets. As they punctured the station's hull, the Marines poured in, their tactics overwhelming the surprised Imperial defenders. In the station's command center, the Imperial commander watched in disbelief as sector after sector fell to the human invaders. "Impossible," he muttered, his tentacles writhing in distress. "How can these primitives be defeating us?" The answer came in the form of Sergeant Smith and his squad, who burst into the command center with practiced precision. "In the name of Earth and all her people," Smith declared, his voice firm, "I hereby claim this station." As the Imperial commander was led away in restraints, the human flag was unfurled in the station's main hall. A cheer went up from the Earth forces, echoing through the captured stronghold and across the comms of every human ship. Admiral Xiang allowed himself a small smile. This was only the beginning, but it was a powerful statement. The galaxy would soon learn that humanity was a force to be reckoned with. As reports of the victory spread, the mood on Earth was jubilant. People danced in the streets, hugged strangers, and looked to the stars with new hope. In a small town in America, Timmy Anderson's parents watched the news, tears streaming down their faces. Their son's death had not been in vain. The battle for Arcturus was over. The war for humanity's place in the galaxy had just begun. The news of Earth's victory at Arcturus spread through the galaxy like wildfire. On countless worlds, beings of all shapes and sizes huddled around communication devices, their eyes wide with disbelief. The mighty Galactic Empire, undefeated for millennia, had been dealt a crushing blow by a species many had dismissed as primitive. In the Imperial Palace on Coruscant Prime, Emperor Zixletter raged. His tentacles lashed out, smashing delicate instruments and sending advisors scurrying for cover. "How?" he roared. "How could those insignificant humans defeat our forces?" One brave advisor stepped forward, his voice quavering. "Your Majesty, it seems we underestimated them. Their technology, their tactics, they're unlike anything we've encountered." The Emperor's eyes narrowed. "Gather the fleet, all of it. We will crush these upstarts once and for all." As the Imperial war machine ground into action, Earth's forces pressed their advantage. Admiral Xiang, emboldened by the victory at Arcturus, split his fleet into 3 massive battle groups. They struck simultaneously at key Imperial strongholds across the galaxy, their advanced stealth technology allowing them to appear seemingly out of nowhere. On the jungle world of Xantar IV, Captain Maria Rodriguez led a daring raid on an Imperial cloning facility. Her fighters swooped low over the treetops, their weapons precise and devastating. As the facility erupted in flames, she couldn't help but think of her students back on Earth. "This is for you," she whispered, "for your future." Meanwhile, in the asteroid fields of the Omega Cluster, Sergeant John Smith and his Marines engaged in a series of brutal boarding actions. They leaped from rock to rock, their advanced exosuits allowing them to survive in the vacuum of space. The Imperial defenders, caught off guard by the humans' unconventional tactics, fell back in disarray. But it wasn't just military might that turned the tide. Dr. Yuki Tanaka, working from her lab on the Terran Justice, made a breakthrough that would change the course of the war. She discovered a way to disrupt the Empire's faster-than-light communication network, plunging their forces into chaos. "Admiral," she reported, her eyes shining with excitement, "we can cut them off. Make it so their left hand doesn't know what the right is doing." Xiang grinned. "Do it, Doctor. Let's see how the Empire fights when it's blind and deaf." As Dr. Tanaka's device was deployed, the effects were immediate and devastating. Imperial fleets, suddenly unable to coordinate, found themselves isolated and vulnerable. Human ships, still linked by their quantum entanglement communicators, picked them apart with ease. But the Empire was not defeated yet. In a desperate bid to turn the tide, Emperor Zixletter ordered his scientists to deploy an experimental superweapon, a device capable of destabilizing a star, turning it into a supernova. The target, Sol, Earth's sun. As the Imperial Doomsday ship approached the solar system, Earth's defense grid lit up with warnings. On the Terran Justice, Admiral Xiang received the alert with a grim expression. "All ships," he commanded, "return to Sol immediately." This is not a drill. The race was on. Could Earth's fleet return in time to save their homeworld? In the skies above Earth, a ragtag group of ships, outdated fighters, civilian craft hastily converted for combat, and a handful of next-generation prototypes, prepared to make a last stand. Among them was Lisa Chen, the young girl who had watched the fleet launch with such wonder. Now, at the controls of her family's retrofitted cargo hauler, she steeled herself for battle. "Remember, Timmy," came the call over the comms. It had become a rallying cry for Earth's forces, a reminder of why they fought. As the Imperial Doomsday ship emerged from hyperspace, it found itself facing not just this motley defense force, but the full might of Earth's returning fleet. Admiral Xiang's ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel in perfect formation, surrounding the enemy vessel. The stage was set for the battle that would decide the fate of Earth, and perhaps the entire galaxy. In homes and bunkers across the planet, humans held their breath, watching the skies and praying for victory. In the imperial palace, Emperor Zixlatar received news of the massive human fleet with growing dread. For the first time, he began to consider a possibility that had once seemed unthinkable: defeat. The future hung in the balance, and the next few moments would determine whether humanity would take its place among the stars or be consigned to cosmic history. The space around Earth glittered with the aftermath of the greatest battle in human history. Debris from destroyed ships, both Imperial and Terran, drifted silently against the backdrop of stars. But Earth still stood, its sun shining brightly, a testament to humanity's indomitable spirit. Admiral Chiang stood on the bridge of the Terran Justice, his uniform scorched and torn. "Status report," he called, his voice hoarse from hours of shouting orders. "Sir," his second-in-command replied, her face beaming despite her exhaustion. "The Imperial Doomsday Weapon has been destroyed. The remaining enemy ships are retreating. We've won." A cheer erupted across the bridge, echoing through every ship in Earth's fleet. The sound of celebration spread to the planet below, where billions watched the skies with bated breath. In New York's Times Square, the giant screens showed live footage from space. The crowd, silent just moments ago, now erupted in joy. Strangers hugged, tears streaming down their faces. In the center of it all stood Timmy Anderson's parents, their grief now mingled with a sense of bittersweet triumph. Back in space, Lisa Chen guided her battered cargo ship back to Earth. She couldn't believe she had survived, let alone played a part in saving her home. As she entered the atmosphere, she saw the contrails of other ships returning: fighters, freighters, and even a school bus that had been converted into an impromptu gunship. Each one carried a hero. On Coruscant Prime, Emperor Zixlatar faced the unthinkable. His advisors cowered as he paced the throne room, his tentacles twitching with barely contained rage. "Your Majesty," one brave soul ventured, "the humans are broadcasting a message across all our channels. They're demanding your surrender." The Emperor froze. For a long moment, silence reigned. Then, with a deflating sigh, he sank onto his throne. "Play the message," he said, his voice devoid of its usual imperial arrogance. Admiral Chiang's face appeared on the screen, resolute but not unkind. "Emperor Zixlatar," he began, "your forces have been defeated. Your superweapon is destroyed. We offer you this choice: surrender and face justice for your crimes, or watch as we dismantle your empire piece by piece. The galaxy will be free. The only question is how much more blood must be shed to make it so." As the message ended, the Emperor looked around at his advisors, seeing the defeat in their eyes. With a heavy heart, he nodded. "Prepare my ship," he said. "I will surrender myself to the humans." News of the Empire's surrender spread rapidly. On countless worlds, oppressed species celebrated their newfound freedom. Many turned to Earth, curious about the humans who had accomplished the impossible. In Geneva, the leaders of Earth gathered to discuss the future. The U.S. President stood at the podium, addressing not just her fellow humans, but representatives from across the galaxy. "Today marks a new era," she declared. "We did not seek this war, but we have won it. Now we must win the peace. We extend a hand of friendship to all peaceful species. Together, we will build a galactic community based on justice, freedom, and mutual respect." As she spoke, work was already underway. Dr. Yuki Tanaka led a team of scientists, human and alien alike, in developing new technologies to benefit all species. Captain Maria Rodriguez started a program to train peacekeepers from various worlds. Sergeant John Smith, now General Smith, oversaw the dismantling of Imperial weapons of mass destruction. And in a small town on Earth, a new monument was unveiled. It showed a young boy looking up at the stars, his hand reaching out as if to touch them. The plaque read, "In memory of Timmy Anderson, whose tragic death sparked a revolution. May we forever strive to be worthy of his innocence and the sacrifice that brought us to the stars." As the sun set on this new era, humans and aliens alike looked to the sky with wonder. The galaxy was vast, full of challenges and opportunities. But now, united in peace, they were ready to face whatever the universe had in store. In the end, it was not Earth's weapons that had truly won the war, but the human spirit, resilient, creative, and driven by an unquenchable thirst for justice. The Galactic Empire had awakened a sleeping giant, and in doing so, had ushered in a new age of galactic peace and cooperation.